I want a thing that pops up and goes, hey, you're live. But no, it doesn't do that. The bars just start moving. I'm like, okay, I think that means we're working. Yay. Okay. I think it's, okay, yay. I was laying on the couch and I 100% was like, I'm just gonna have a lazy night. And then my alarm was like, hey, you're streaming in half an hour. And I was like, oh, I'm totally prepared. Like 100% prepared. Welcome to my corner by my bed. I hope you had a good week. How was it? Great. I'm so glad it was good. I also had a crappy week. Well, it wasn't that crappy, but like a little bit crappy. Oh, I should have peed before. I had to pee. That's okay. We're gonna hold it. I got my fuzzy blanket. I got my notes on my phone. I got my migraine with me. It's gonna be a good time. Ugh. So this week, I wanted to talk about medications, and then I realized a lot of medications I wanted to talk about were antidepressants, and then I realized I never really talked about depression. So I was gonna talk about depression a little bit, but I also still want to talk about medications because I think that's really important. So a little bit of both. So start with depression. Depression is something I think a lot of people have a good understanding about, but I think there's still a lot of misunderstanding. A lot of people say, oh, I'm so depressed, or oh, this, that, or oh, I'm just so depressed right now, and there's a lot of, I'm just gonna go kill myself, or whatever, and people are very nonchalant with that kind of attitude. I used to be like that, so it's not like I can get upset with people. But now that I've been on the other side where I've actually suffered from depression for a long time, it's very just, I didn't realize how prevalent it was. But depression, I mean, there's the official diagnosis, characterized by all these different points of lack of motivation, or you're too restless, or you sleep too much, you sleep too little, you are moving so slow that people notice, or you can't function, you aren't showing up to work, you have some suicidal thoughts, you feel down for, not just down, but you're depressed for an extended period of time. How do we define depression? It's more than just a period of sadness. It's not, oh my gosh, I had a bad day, I feel depressed. But weeks, months. How do you explain, oh, my cat's here. Henley, how do you explain depression? Depression is when my cat leaves me as I'm trying to talk to her and shows me her butthole instead of letting me pet her. No, it's not. Depression's a lot more serious than that. Depression is different for everybody. Just like anxiety is different for everybody. For me, my depression started when I was about 13, 12, is when I first experienced true depression. Everybody has bad days. Doesn't necessarily mean you're depressed. A lot of people can go through bad weeks or months grieving after traumatic experiences, the loss of a close one or loved one. That's normal. What isn't normal is trying to remember what my depression was like when I was 13, 14, 15, 16. High school back then I feel like was just such a blur. It was just weeks. I feel like everything was kind of blurred together, but it feels like one long continuing day, and there was no end in sight. I went through the motions, and depression isn't just feeling sad or bad or down or whatever. For me, depression felt like nothing. It was this numbness, this void. It felt like there was a black hole inside of me, and it sucked everything into it. So the things I loved to do didn't really mean anything to me anymore. The things I used to enjoy didn't bring me joy anymore. The things I used to want to do, I didn't really want to do anymore. Everything was so much more exhausting. Everything took so much more out of me. I was irritable all the time. But on the outside, a lot of it was just fake smiles, fake whatever, but I couldn't wait to be home, alone, quiet. It was a very weird limbo existence, if you will. It's very hard to put to words what depression is like, because it feels like you're being crushed by nothing, and you're drowning, but there's no water. I'm suffocating, but there's plenty of air. I'm falling, but I'm standing on solid ground. Like I'm floating away, but I'm clearly anchored. It's this weird, like, dialectical, weird, I felt like a walking contradiction. I looked okay, but inside I was falling apart, but I wasn't falling apart because nothing was making me fall apart. But I wanted to die, but nothing made me want to die. It was just, what the fuck? Why am I here? There's no purpose to anything. There's no... And then before I knew it, I wasn't actively suicidal for a long time. It was very passively suicidal for a long time, and it was very, and here's what I mean by that. It was, I'm gonna jaywalk. Yeah, I look cool with my friends in high school, but also if I get hit by a car, I don't really care. I'm gonna do these stupid things as a teenager, and I'll drive really fast, or I'll do this, or I'll do that, and it looks really cool. I look really edgy or brave, but really, I low-key hope I get in an accident, and I low-key hope something happens so that I don't have to deal with this bullshit anymore. You're not actively trying to kill yourself, but you don't mind if you die, if that makes sense. That's what again, I'm not a medical professional. I don't have professional training outside of training for like crisis text line volunteering, but you don't want to be alive. You don't actively want to kill yourself. You wouldn't mind if you die, but you don't actively want to live anymore. It's a weird... This is what I imagine purgatory feels like. There's just no point. You're floating. But it's not... There's nothing enjoyable about it. That is what that felt like. But imagine that on repeat for years. It drives you mad. Living in this, what felt pointless. Oh, there's my Henley. And that is why things like, just cheer up, just get over it, have a positive attitude, things will get better, or the typical bullshit you hear from people that just don't understand but are trying their best. You appreciate it, but it's not helpful because nothing might necessarily be wrong. It's not my mindset. You know, if it was as simple as changing my mindset, no one would have depression. You know what I mean? Like, depressed people aren't stupid people. If I could change it by having a positive attitude, believe me, I would not be depressed or anxious. I still low-key think God just, like, had to nerf me a little because I'd be way too powerful for you bitches if I didn't have something. You know what I mean? Like, I hang on to that. But, I don't like... I understand people have good intentions, but good intentions mean nothing to me when what you're saying makes me feel stupid. Because I know all the right answers. Hell, I have a degree in psychology. Like, I've taken counseling classes. I've been in counseling. I get it. And if it was as simple as cheer up, the stream would not exist. But because there's so much misunderstanding about what depression is, and I think because it's been so misrepresented. It's been presented in such a light manner, I think. It's been so relaxed, if you will. Like, everybody's depressed because they had one bad day, you know? It's just, there's so much stigma around it. And the problem is, I'm in America, and a huge problem in America is we live in this capitalistic society that says, you are the problem. If you succeed, you are the product of your success. It's your whatever, it's your good job, you, and if you fail, it's your fault. So your mental health is your fault as well. And if you aren't succeeding because you feel depressed, that's your fault. And if you're not functioning at this high level because of XYZ, you're lazy. Something's wrong with you. And that does not help someone that's depressed, because I'm really not that lazy of a person. Yet, I feel like a lazy piece of shit because I have internalized capitalism. And because I am not working myself to death, and I am learning to call out when I need a mental health day, when my migraines are too bad, I am learning to take care of myself. This bullshit capitalistic society that I am unfortunately stuck in makes me feel like a lazy piece of shit. And that does not help my depression. And I think that does not help people with depression. It does not help people with anxiety. That also plays a role into it. That perpetuates the stigma around depression, leading people to be lazy. Their lack of motivation translates to laziness. They don't find joy in the things they used to find joy in, means they're a party pooper or whatever. It's a lot of depression has been retranslated into really disgusting terms, I think. I think in an effort for the common people, if you will, to understand depression better, but really it's not depression. I feel like they've just completely twisted it and made depression sound like this lazy person who doesn't want to do shit, and they want to call it a disability, and now they don't want to work and they just want to like profit off the system and get paid for it and da-da-da-da-da. And you know, a lot of people, you hear a lot of shit about like, well, it's not really a disability, just get over it. It's like, well, that's not how it works. If that's how it worked, again, no one would have depression. I don't know anybody that would choose to be depressed. So I think there's a problem in translation in what is depression and how is it being portrayed. That is a huge problem with depression and stigma. And it also leads to the creation of myths as well. I feel like a lot of the myths are tied right up with stigma. Depression isn't real. People are just lazy. It's not really that true. And I think the problem is with depression, it can come in episodes. So like for me, I will go through weeks where I show up to work all the time. I feel good. I am present. And then I hit a week where all of a sudden I'm like, shit. I don't feel as good. I am not as present. I am not as productive. And it looks like laziness because, well, she's capable of functioning at this level, so why isn't she at this level all the time? Because my mental illness does not allow me to be at this level all the time. And if I could power through it, I would. But sometimes I can't. And when I can't... and that's the thing. Some mental illness, like depression, there's a thing called seasonal affect disorder, where depression is worse in the winter because of the weather. That's an actual thing. Like, a lot of people don't believe that, but it's a thing. And during that time, things like showering, things like brushing your teeth become so difficult. So difficult. And, like, some people can get out of bed and show up, and others can't. None of it is right, none of it is wrong. Everybody's depression just makes them function differently. It is what it is. None of it is right, none of it is wrong. Like, I remember the week I was diagnosed with everything officially. I was 19 years old, and I believe it was in February. I was not surprised by the diagnosis of depression. I was surprised by the diagnosis of anxiety. And the way these things are diagnosed generally is there is a scale. For depression, it is called the PHQ-9. You go through a series of questions, and there are things like, over the past 2 weeks, answer from like 1 through 5. And it's not at all, every day, nearly every day, some days, and then like neutral every other, something like that. And the questions are things like, the things that used to bring me joy no longer bring me joy. I have felt so restless or I have moved so slowly or so quickly that other people have noticed. I have felt fatigued, or overly tired. I have thoughts that I'd be better off dead. I don't have the 9 questions memorized off the top of my head, but things along that line that hit that criteria. And you can Google it online. It's very easy to find. And I scored, I think, I'm trying to remember what the highest you can score is. I think it's 3 times 9, so like 27, I think. I'm pretty sure something like that is the highest you can score. And I'm pretty sure I scored like in the 20s, which is like moderate severe. And then the anxiety is, I believe it's called the GAD-7, similar to the PHQ-9, but there's 7 questions, similar, but they target the criteria for anxiety. Very similar scale. You answer for the past 2 questions, and you answer them, you get rated, and both of mine were through the roof, very high. And I was started on medications that day, and I remember what that week was like, leading up to it. And the comment about talking about it in public makes you feel like you're just looking for attention. You're absolutely correct, because you talk about feeling anxious and you get the comment of, well, everybody's anxious these days, or I struggle with depression. Well, everybody's sad about something, and it gets minimized and validated, and that to me is not okay. I had an employer, actually, and I won't say where, but she's a cunt. I took a day off because, one, that was a very toxic workplace. We even had a meeting about it, and she says, I told her I just need a day off. I need a mental health day. Like, this weekend was very stressful. And her response was, okay, I guess I can stay until so-and-so shows up. And during my 90-day eval, she brought up that day. And it happened to be the same day my boyfriend, it was like the last day he was in town. And she goes, yeah, something about my absences and how I took a mental health day on the last day my boyfriend was in town. And I looked at her like, do you have something to say to me? Because I don't know what you meant by mental health day, but if you think I took work off to enjoy an extra day with him, first off, I would have just said that. And 2, I was feeling depressed and stayed in bed all day and didn't do anything. So if you thought that was what I wanted to do on his last day in town, like, you've got it backwards. But she was an uneducated cunt. So, but that's the attitude you get from people. They make these assumptions. Because a lot of people are cunts. But that's the kind of scrutiny that you get when you try to be honest with people about what you're going through. And it fucking sucks. Because it makes me feel like, well, am I actually going through this? And that is what we call gaslighting, my friends. That's when other people make you feel like your reality is not real. They tell you and talk to you and treat you like what you're talking about, your reality, is not real. You feel crazy. You question your reality. And that is not okay. So, fuck her. Fuck that place. I'm glad I don't work there anymore. But yeah. So I was diagnosed when I was 19. I'm 26 now. I'm sorry, I have food in my teeth. I've been watching Nailed It on Netflix, and it makes me feel good about myself, and I've been eating cookies like no other. And I have cookies stuck in my tooth. Sorry. So there's all kinds of treatments for depression and anxiety. And I think I've touched on a lot of them, but because I've been dealing with migraines and like just physical shit that I have to deal with, mostly migraines right now, I wanted to talk about medication specifically today. I've actually gotten a lot of questions about medications from my friends, and I'm more than happy to talk about medications, answer questions about medications, because I've studied a lot of medications. I've worked closely with medications, including antidepressants, for the past 3 years. I mean, I've worked in internal medicine, and you see a little bit of everything, including depression and anxiety. I've seen my provider prescribe, stop, switch, and work with antidepressants for 2.5 years. I work in cardiology now, and a lot that I've seen, a lot of like palpitations and stuff, a lot of it is secondary to anxiety, and a lot of it is unmedicated anxiety, and a lot of times they come back and go, I saw my regular doctor and they started me on XYZ, and actually I feel a lot better. So I am in the camp of don't take medications unless you need it, but I am also in the camp of if medication is going to make your life better, why not take it? So I'm not saying take all the medications ever. Medications will cure everything, and like whatever. If you're not comfortable taking medication, fine, don't. But don't put others down who do. I take antidepressants, and I am more than happy to talk about my experience with antidepressants. I've been on them since I was 19, and so I was going to talk about my antidepressant that I was on. So I took notes because I was like, what was I on? So the first one I'm going to talk about different kinds of medications as well, but the first medication I was on, it was called Paxil, or paroxetine, I think it's called. That's a generic name, and I'll talk about the difference between generic and brand name as well. But I was on Paxil first, which I guess was supposed to help depression and anxiety. And okay, so here's the thing when you want to try a medication. I went to the school doctor at Seattle Pacific University. Again, this is a quote liberal Christian college, and this person was a nurse practitioner. I have nothing against nurse practitioners. I go see one right now for my regular doctor. I have nothing against PAs. I want to be a PA. And I have nothing against doctor, psychiatrist, nothing against any medical professional. I just did not like this medical professional because she clearly did not know what she was doing. She literally grabbed a book and found a medication that says treats depression and anxiety and picked it. Like, that was how she picked it. I was sitting right there watching her. And we started on it. I started with like the lowest dose. We started with splitting the tablet, took that for a week. I tolerated it well, and then took the whole tablet and then started taking that, and it was fine. I didn't really feel any different, but I remember like waking up early, and the week leading up to it, I remember like laying in bed doing nothing. The lights were on the whole time, didn't go to class. I just laid there. Brushing my teeth was a battle. Putting on pajamas and changing physically hurt me. I didn't talk to anybody. The medications helped me a little bit, and it helped me get going to class, I guess. It helped me finish that year, so it helped me enough to get going. And the thing with these medications, if you are taking an antidepressant, it is important not to drink alcohol. Why? Alcohol is a depressant. If you take an antidepressant and you're drinking alcohol, which is a depressant, they cancel each other out. So, me being 19, I think I was 20. No, I was 20 when I was diagnosed. Okay, so I was 20 when I was diagnosed. I did my math wrong. Okay, so I was 20 when I was diagnosed. I just turned 20. And diagnosed February, which was a month after I turned 20. finished that year on Paxil. And, you know, I give Paxil a lot of shit, but it did help me finish that year. And then July of that year, 2015, I started drinking very heavily while taking Paxil. So that was my bad. And by the time I ended up in the hospital, February of 2016, obviously the Paxil was not working because the amount of alcohol I was consuming, I was full-blown alcoholic, blackout drunk nearly every night. This little pill is not going to stand a chance against all the alcohol I'm consuming. You know, like, looking back, I 100% recognize why Paxil did not work in that moment. No wonder I was still depressed, still anxious, still suicidal, because all the alcohol might feel good in the moment, but alcohol at the end of the day is a depressant. So, yeah, I started with Paxil, got in the hospital, and I'm gonna put my phone on airplane mode really quick because I keep getting notifications and it's distracting me. So my first go around with antidepressants didn't go great. That was my fault. Looking back, I 100% recognize and can own up to that now. That's important in these self-reflective moments. I will never bullshit you. I will never pretend I did it right if I didn't. And yes, I am having this realization on camera right now for like the first time. So this is super fun for me. But you know what? It is what it is. And if I'm gonna have this realization, it's better here on my stream about mental health and alcoholism than anywhere else. Oh, Henley. She's leaving me. Poor Henley. She probably remembers this time. It was very traumatic for her because I was not a good cat mom. So anyways. Gosh. Whew, what a mess I was. Okay. So that's a little bit about where I was with medication when I first started, but okay, we're gonna loop, but stay with me. Let's talk about the 5 big kinds of antidepressants really quick. Again, I am not a medical professional. I did learn a little bit about these, but I will talk about the 5 big ones. The most common, the ones that I am most familiar with, is called SSRIs. These are called selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors. What the fuck does that mean? So serotonin, one of the happy drugs in your brain. Serotonin, dopamine, 2 happy drugs. Selective serotonin reuptake inhibitor. So basically in your brain, you have a bunch of things called neurotransmitters, and there's hormones and chemicals. Serotonin is this happy chemical in your brain, okay? And if this is my serotonin, this is what I need to feel happy. And then your brain has neurotransmitters. Let's go here so you can see. It'll release serotonin, boop, and this one, the other neurotransmitter, will pick it up, like that, boop, like that. Okay, this is my very, very crude explanation. You can go to YouTube for better explanation. So they release serotonin, the other one will pick it up. Now, in between the neurotransmitters, can you see that? I think you can. In between is this little gap. And when this neurotransmitter sucks up the serotonin, that process is called reuptake. So what the SSRIs do is they come in, boop, cock block. You don't get to suck up that serotonin anymore. So this one will pop out serotonin, boop, 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 but now there's a cock block. So the serotonin will try and come up this one, but there's a block. So the serotonin has nowhere to go except the rest of your brain. So essentially, think of like, I can only think of like gross examples. I'm trying to think of appropriate examples. It's like plugging up your sink. It's like when you turn on the water, the sink has nowhere to go and your sink the water has nowhere to go, so your sink fills up. That's basically what an SSRI does with serotonin. Your brain is the sink and the water is the serotonin. Pretty sure I nailed that analogy. I'm pretty positive I nailed that. So the SSRIs essentially allow your brain to have more serotonin, the happy chemical, floating around your brain to improve your mood. And this was first discovered in like the 1970s. It is considered one of the, quote, newer ones, because the other drugs, I think, were discovered in the 1950s. It's not really that much newer, but it was like the 70s, and common examples are Paxil, or paroxetine, citalopram, Lexapro, or escitalopram, Zoloft, which is also sertraline. So now you're probably sitting there thinking, why do they have two names? I'll tell you. So, Paxil is also called paroxetine. One is capitalized, one is not. Paxil is capitalized, paroxetine is not. Paxil is what they considered the brand name. Paroxetine is what they called the generic. What's the difference? The generic is going to be a fuck ton cheaper. Why? Because the FDA is legally allowed to let the generic have an 11% variance on the dose. So you might be taking Paxil 20 milligrams, but it might be varied by 11%, up to 11%. So, with every batch, bottle, whatever, of the generic you get, might not be 20 milligrams exactly. It might be 11% skewed one way or the other. That's what generic means. That's why it's cheaper. Now, the brand name, Paxil, capital P, it's going to be a little bit more expensive. Why? Because they are not allowed to vary that much. Now, they might vary a little bit, not 11%. But the difference between that, let's see, 11% of 20 is what, like 2.2%, if I'm doing the math right. So, or 2.2 milligrams. So instead of 20 milligrams, you might be getting like 18, 22. It's not that much of a difference, but when it comes to an antidepressant, if you're taking 22 a day versus 18 a day the next month, you might feel that difference, especially if you're very sensitive to medications. And then there's things like there's medications for thyroid. When people who have thyroid medications, they have levothyroxine versus Synthroid. The Synthroid is the brand name. Some people can only take the brand name because their thyroid is so sensitive to medication. And when your thyroid is off, it can throw off your mood, you can gain weight. The thyroid controls so many things in your body, and this is not related to mental health. But it's just an example of why generic versus brand can make a difference for some people. I've seen patients whose profiles will say brand name only for Synthroid, which is a thyroid medication, because they can't risk that 11% variance. And the chances of the generic varying that much is really not that high. But again, for some people, they don't want to risk it. So I take Wellbutrin, which is the brand name, but I'm pretty sure I have the generic, which is bupropion. Also, the brand names are a lot easier to pronounce. I personally don't have a problem taking generic. Do I have some months that are worse than others? Yeah. Are they manageable though? Yes. For me, yes. If it's your first go around with medications, you can try the brand. If you want to try the generic, that's okay too. But keep in mind, it can vary up to 11%. The FDA might have updated that. I should have checked that right before. This information that I am getting, the 11%, is about a year and a half old from an endocrinologist I was working with, because endocrinology, they work with people with diabetes, they deal with the thyroid, which is where I learned that 11% variance. So something to keep in mind. That is why generic and brand. That's how they're different. And again, not a medical professional, just relaying the things I've learned working with doctors firsthand. So anyway, that's why they have different names. And also, if the brand name is super expensive, there are coupons. GoodRx, GOODRX.com is a good website if you need help affording your medications. Okay, that's my tangent. So that's the first kind of medications, SSRIs. Again, that's sync analogy. I think I crushed it. Second kind, SNRIs. Very similar. It is serotonin, and this is a big word, norepinephrine. Select reuptake inhibitors. So it is the same thing, except it also fills your sync up with serotonin and norepinephrine, which is basically another happy drug, or a happy chemical. It was first approved in 1993, actually, by the FDA. And two examples are Effixor, which is the brand name. The generic is venlafaxine, and Cymbalta, which that one's generic is duloxetine. And Cymbalta is actually commonly used for pain as well, people with chronic pain. It works as an antidepressant, but it also helps decrease pain. So those are two. Okay, the third one, the last three I actually had not heard of before. So the third one is called the Tricyclic Antidepressant, first discovered in 1950. It's named after the chemical structure, so it looks like, tricyclic. You can figure it out what that looks like. Think of a tricycle like 3 circles. Again, discovered in the 1950s. It's similar to the SNRI, but it blocks another neurotransmitter that helps with the movement of skeletal muscles. The examples that they listed, I hadn't heard of any of them except for doxepin or Sinequin, and I honestly not 100% sure which one's the brand or generic. Doxepin is the only one I've heard, and the only context I've heard it used for is in control of chronic pain. So again, these are not as common. The fourth one is called Monoamine Oxidase inhibitor, again, discovered in 1950s. So the way this one works, again, I had not heard of this one as well, but basically it inhibits the action of an enzyme called the monoamine oxidase. This enzyme breaks down monoamines, which is a neurotransmitter that helps with mood regulation. So by blocking the breakdown of that neurotransmitter, there's more mood regulation happening. So I hope that makes sense. So basically, there's an enzyme that breaks down this neurotransmitter that helps regulate mood. So this medication stops that enzyme from breaking down that neurotransmitter. So that neurotransmitter, there's more of it, so it can regulate your mood better. And again, I have never heard of any of these, but the two medications, or they listed several, but Parnate Nardil were the two easiest to pronounce. Again, I have these two, I've actually never heard. I've never heard of any doctor using these. And I actually read that they are less common due to, they react very highly to foods high with, starts with a T, and I cannot remember what it is right now. I want to say tryptophan, but I'm pretty sure that's not true. Either way, they're really highly reactive. And the fifth one is just called Atypical Antidepressants, and these are ones that don't quite fit into one of the 4 categories. These are fairly new. Trazadone is a good example. It helps with sleep, depression. It's basically an SSRI, but it also blocks another neurotransmitter. Is a lot of what these examples were. A lot of it was it's basically an SSRI plus it does this, or it's an SNRI plus it does this. And I didn't know this, but Wellbutrin is actually classified as an atypical depressant. because it's classified as a dopamine reuptake inhibitor. So again, picture that sink analogy, except with dopamine, which is another happy thing. So those are the 5 big classes of antidepressants, and the ones with the lowest side effect profile are going to be your SSRIs. The SSRIs, the selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, are going to be the most popular because of the low side effect profiles. Common side effects to all of these medications include fatigue, constipation, suicidal ideations, weight gain, etc. And I just want you to know, before you freak out about the side effects of medications, the FDA is legally required to list every single side effect reported ever along the way of trials. So one person could report something and they have to list it. So one person could have died and it could be completely unrelated, but they'd have to report it. So just keep in mind, if they're listing all these side effects, one person could have experienced constipation. Just remember that. And the biggest thing that scared me before I started was a side effect of suicidal ideation. I thought, how counterintuitive. An antidepressant that makes me want to kill myself? Here's how that works. The antidepressant, if you're feeling suicidal, you're lacking motivation, you take the antidepressant, your motivation starts to come back first. Typically, your motivation starts to come back, and that's why your suicidal ideations increase. Your motivation starts to come back, you start to feel like you want to do things again, and because you're coming up from this depressed state, what did you want to do when you were depressed? Exactly. You probably had some really dark thoughts. And if you were feeling suicidal, that's okay. It's okay. I've been there. And when your motivation comes back, those dark thoughts tend to come with it, which is why suicidal ideation tends to be what they consider a side effect. Because once your motivation comes up, at least for me, I didn't want to go skipping in the field of roses. My dark thoughts came with it. I didn't just cheer up immediately. That took time. So let's talk a little bit about these side effects. Okay. Because a lot of people are hesitant to start medications because of side effects. Let's talk about fatigue. Okay. Depression already makes you fatigued. And if you are dealing with sleep problems, okay, so there's 2 sides of the coin to that, right? If you are dealing with insomnia because of depression and anxiety, fatigue doesn't sound like a bad side effect. Okay, check. If you're already dealing with fatigue because of depression, and this medication might make you feel fatigued, yeah, it might make you feel a little bit more fatigued than before, but also it's going to give you back motivation. So the cost-benefit analysis, I really think the fatigue the medication is going to give you is not going to be worse than the depression fatigue. I can pretty much promise you that. Let's talk about the weight gain one. Most SSRIs are weight neutral. I know for a fact Wellbutrin is also weight neutral. I've seen it prescribed for help with weight loss because it's a stimulant, and it also helps with ADHD actually, and it helps with smoking cessation. Again, atypical antidepressant. I don't smoke, I might have a little ADHD and I don't need help with weight loss, but whatevs. It's like 4 birds in a pill. But the weight gain, it is really not as significant as you think. A lot of people think they will take an antidepressant and balloon 20-30 pounds. That's really not how that works. Really, in the 2.5 years, I have not seen someone come in ballooning 20, 40 pounds. That just does not happen. Most people stress eat. They gain weight because they stress eat. They don't gain weight because they took an antidepressant and their mood improved. In some cases, their appetite comes back and they might gain a little weight because they're eating normally. You can say that's a side effect of the medication. I say it's a side effect of you becoming healthy. Your mood is improving and you're eating normally, and I don't think 5 pounds is a bad thing. And plus, with the increased motivation, you'll probably be more active, you'll go outside, or just move a little bit more than you did when you were depressed. So again, the trade-off, I think, is worth it. A little bit of constipation. Dude, Miralax. I don't know. That one just does not seem like a big deal to me. But again, like, to each their own. I'm just saying, the point I really am trying to make is, for every side effect, there is something you can do about it. And for me, I'm taking Wellbutrin and Lexapro. So Wellbutrin, again, considered atypical. Lexapro is an SSRI. They both have relatively low side effect profiles. I don't think I have any side effects that I can think of. Wellbutrin is a stimulant, so if you take too high of a dose, it can increase your anxiety, but my doctor thinks I have a little bit of ADHD, so it actually calms me down. But I take a low dose of both. And by the way, each medication is dosed differently. So my Lexapro is at 10, but my Wellbutrin is at 150. And you might go, whoa, but that's how they're supposed to be. Different medications are dosed differently. So 5 for one is normal, 100 for another is normal, and that's okay. Again, talk to your doctor about any of this. And I think the biggest medication myth I've heard from people is, Allison, I'm scared I'm going to lose my personality if I start a medication. I don't want to lose myself. To that, I say, you've already lost yourself. If you've been suffering from depression or anxiety for a long time, your personality's already gone. It's already been stripped. And that is a hard truth not a lot of people want to hear. But it's true. This fake smile you put on, it's not really you. It's just what you think other people want to see. What you put on so they don't worry. It's not really helpful or healthy to anybody. And so yeah, I think if you've been depressed for a long time and your biggest reason for not seeking help or avoiding medication is, I don't want to lose myself. My roommate is vacuuming. It's because depression and anxiety have vacuumed up your personality. And it's true. I believe that fully. There's nothing to strip away when there's nothing left. So if you take a medication that might possibly strip you of your personality when you don't have a personality left, what more is there to lose? The answer is absolutely fucking nothing. You have nothing left to lose. So why not go for it? And avoiding medication does not make you stronger. Taking medication does not make you weaker. Taking medication also doesn't make you stronger. I choose to take my antidepressants every day because my baseline was here without medications. And with medications, my baseline is here. With therapy, with self-care, my baseline goes up to here a little bit more. And I'm going to do all I can to raise my baseline, because if I can live my life with a higher, happier, better, more productive baseline, I would be a fucking idiot to not do that. If I chose to not take my medications and just, quote, power through and live life down here because what, my pride? I'd be a fucking idiot. Who am I proving, like, what am I proving and who am I proving it to? Nothing and no one. I proudly take my medications because they make me function way better than I would without them. And I probably sound like I'm pushing for meds. And I have no problem sounding that way because they made my life so much better, and I've watched them make other people's lives so much better. And a lot of older people, I hate to sound like I'm generalizing, but a lot of older people are saying, well, they didn't have that back in my day. It's because mental health was not something discussed, and I'm sorry that they didn't have it. But just because you suffered doesn't mean other people should suffer. And if you think other people should suffer because you suffered, you're a sadistic fuck, and you should probably get therapy and probably some meds. And I stand behind that statement. But the point is, if someone gives you a solution that can make your life easier, and it's affordable, just saying, most antidepressants are covered by insurance, and if you don't have insurance, check out goodrx.com. Most of them are like $6 a month. I'm gonna close my door because, wow, that vacuum is fucking loud. Ugh, there we go. But if there's a solution that's affordable and doable that would make my life better, why not take it? And again, if that's not something you're comfortable with right now, then okay. Do some more research. Check out other options. Do other things. But if you are absolutely miserable and you have tried everything else, why not? There is no personality to lose because I guarantee your mental health has already stripped you of everything. So, that's my spiel on medications. Yeah, I don't know what prompted that. I've had really good conversations with people. One of my friends, I've had good conversations the last couple months with a couple people about it. And I know one of my friends in Europe just started medications after talking to his counselor, and he feels better than ever, and I'm very proud of him. My other friend is considering talking to his counselor about it. A lot of my friends are on medications, and I don't see anything wrong with that. So, yeah. Yeah. So, I don't have a fancy outro. This vacuum is really annoying me. Like, really, it's also reminding me that I really need to fucking vacuum my room. And you know what? With my meds, I feel fucking motivated to vacuum my room. So I'm gonna fucking go vacuum my room right now. So yeah. Thanks for listening, and if you have any questions, I am happy to answer them. I think you can just message people on Twitch. I'm connected to a lot of my friends here on Facebook and Discord and stuff. So, yeah, always happy to engage in these conversations because this is important and this is something I'm passionate about. So, thanks for giving me an hour of your time this week, and I will be back next week, and I believe I will be interviewing my boyfriend, Matt, about his experiences. So, yeah, tune in next week, 6 o'clock Pacific time for that. Insert fancy outro here. Thanks. Have a good week. Bye.